There are a few places on Earth truly unexplored, but they do exist. Surfers hunt out the undiscovered wave, filmmakers seek out the unfilmed, and explorers tackle the unexplored. That's how, after a decade of nomadic wanderings throughout Southeast Asia, surfer cinematographers Ronnie Gorringe and Chris Red Eye Fowler created the Indo Express and became explorers. The 4-month voyage, undertaken with film crew, teams of professional surfers and Indonesian gypsies, was at times a nightmare of organisation, coordination and required inordinate patience. But the years of preparation will be well rewarded with the exploration of some of the most beautiful, unblemished coastlines in the world and the challenge of surfing some magnificent and as yet untried surf breaks discovered en route. The first sail is to the islands of the Lesser Sundas, where a deep strait causes a climatic transition zone from lush tropical to harsh and barren. On Lombok Island, we will discover Desert Reef, so named for its surrounds. Access is limited, and its exact position is a closely guarded secret. First, an overview of the total area undertaken on the voyage. Leaving the rugged shores of the Lesser Sundas behind, and with dolphin pilots at the bow, an intent crew set off for a tough 18-hour sail across the dreaded Lombok Strait to West Sumbawa. A cluster of small bays there produce a large variety of unique breaks to explore. Getting there is the hardest part. In dramatic contrast to the dry, arid conditions of Lombok to the east, the coastlines here will feature mystic mountains, steep cliffs and lush tropical vegetation, painting an enviable backdrop for 2 weeks of breakhopping. The wind eases to perfect. The captain orders the dropping of anchor and the raising of surf flags in anticipation and hope of a rising swell. Break hopping brings its own adventures. Sometimes an hour's fishing can bring in a haul of trevally, mackerel and barracuda large enough to feed a village. Red-Eye, the sashimi kid, takes angler's honours. Chris seems to have a special affinity to the fish. If they only knew he likes to eat them raw. The rest of the party head ashore to cook up huge fish steaks on the barbie. There's more than enough fish to share with the locals, who reciprocate with island hospitality before hauling the rest of the catch back to their village. The Capella Sea raises anchor in the early afternoon. and surrounded by locals, eases out of the bay and into a rising swell. A fast and wild sail is required if there is to be a late surf at another newly discovered break nearby. The following day, a decreasing swell pointed to a short run to yo-yos, a good quality reef sand right-hander not far from here, a wave which provided a solid base for some explosive surfing. But first, to greenies. With yo-yos having proven playful, yet reliable, the time had come to satisfy the craving for something bigger. Tacking directly into the prevailing trade wind made for some intrepid sailing and hard work. Despite the pace, much of the sailing was done at night, which has its own hidden dangers in these treacherous reef-riddled waters. Heading for East Sumbawa, where it's said the full moon at Camp Hoo can pull up a solid 8 to 10 foot groundswell from the depths of the Indian Ocean. Directly in front of the camp there is a shallow, sucking wave named Periscopes, which provides a fair challenge, but it was Nungas, the left-hander exploding on the offshore reef, that our crew will find the most exhilarating. The boys were becoming more accustomed to the yacht, and even the totally inexperienced were learning some seamanship. Despite the unfavourable wind direction, good headway was made, arriving in time for the swell. The next leg of our adventure leads east towards Timor, where a search is made high and low for a good break amidst a depressing lull and swell. Eventually, on the westernmost point of these islands, the group stumble upon a unique break, duly christened the Wedge. The swell here rebounds off the surrounding cliffs, forming the Wedge takeoff. En route, island stops are required for supplies. Winding slowly up shallow rivers, the only means of access to many of these communities, and then trekking overland in the heavy heat, the supply party was constantly under the watchful eyes of curious islanders and a variety of wildlife. Arriving at one village in search of fresh food, the famished crew come off second best to a clan of Komodo dragons who had devoured everything in sight. Our cameraman was lucky not to become part of the feeding frenzy, as the reptiles eyed the reflecting lens and his freckled flesh. The Capella Sea has stayed here longer than intended, and not only because of the surf and scenery. The abundance of life and magical underwater landscape beneath the surface have our crew captivated, diving whenever they're not surfing. When Red Eye starts doing Aquaman impersonations, it's time to return to the surface. Water's rich in tropical marine life and the added bonus of sailing amongst enormous herds of whales and schools of dolphins make it all the more difficult to return to civilization. But full moon approaches and the breaks of Bali beckon. Bali has seen many changes in the last 10 years as its reputation as a tourist resort and surfing mecca grows. Now there are mega crowds, nightlife and capitalism. But good timing is still of the essence. Full moon rises and a swell surges. Padang Padang, one of the most famous and potentially dangerous waves in Indonesia, sets the stage for some breathtaking surfing. A short stay in Bali and the course is set for Nias, a world-renowned right-hand break off West Sumatra. There are anxious moments as the cargo doors shut on a full load of live chickens. The boards are still on the tarmac. After a bit of negotiation and the usual delays, it's liftoff. The equipment all safely stowed aboard. A 3-day slog will be the next hurdle. Ronnie and Red Eye hustle up a Land Rover, rip out the back seats and proceed to overload it. Passing first through the Dust Bowl city of Medan, the route winds through lush tropical countryside on twisting, tortured roads, where the dangers of driving are ever present. Great scars have been slashed into the virgin rainforest to clear the way for new date plantations. The humidity is oppressive. Climbing up through the mountains, glimpses of sunlight illuminate the landscape, steaming in the heat. It's sweltering in the cramped cabin, but the stunning scenery makes it at least bearable. Temporarily abandoning the Land Rover in Sabolga, the crew ride the ferry alongside a seemingly endless chain of malaria-infested islands, disembarking eventually at Gunung, the capital of Nias Island. A final debilitating 6 hours later, the bus pulls up at Lagundi Bay to a dead calm. But all is soon forgotten when one morning provides a good 6 to 8 foot swell surging out on the ledge directly in front of the huts. With great relief, our disbelieving surfers head for the water. Once again, the swell of Nias has eased off, so it is back to the road for what was to be the most grueling overland battle of the trip. What looked like a viable route was planned to Java along the west coast of Sumatra, knowing that due to the recent deluge, most of the roads would be near impassable and swollen rivers would have seriously damaged many of the bridges. But everyone was eager to make tracks. The locals helped cart a truckload of luggage into town where a North Nias bound bus was waiting. Despite the long waits between swells and the burning after effects of the local cuisine, the crew left Nias feeling keen and content. The weather turned sour, but the overladen bus ploughed on regardless. After all, this kind of climatic extreme is not uncommon throughout Indonesia. The rain never stopped and the roads turned from bad to worse. Our bus driver soon went from excessively fast to exasperatingly slow. Our trusty navigators were right about the bridges too. Often whole sections had disappeared into the river below. Only fool's courage born of experience kept everyone on board, fording some rivers and braving the bridges on others. Retrieving the not-so-trusty four-wheel drive, wading through trails more like riverbeds than roads, the convoy dare not stop for 3 long days. Even when the sun returned, the lack of swell didn't justify a halt. Then a break is discovered just as a break is needed. The locals give the thumbs up after a little hesitation. A long reef across the river mouth creates an uneven but workable wave. Not classic, but a lot of fun away from the crowds of Nias. After a tiring trek, it takes little encouragement from the village kids to get back in the water. Leaving West Java to sail out of the sheltered bay into a strong trade wind. The destination, One Tree Point, an outstanding left-hand break pitching on the edge of a dry reef. Here would be discovered some of the largest and most intense barrels yet encountered. The heavy sail to get there is not the only crowd deterrent. All our participating surfers hit the shallow ledge at some stage. With its isolation, inaccessibility and intoxicating tubes, sails were set for the perfect wave. Already too much time had passed and it was back to the boat and testing trade wind sailing conditions. A plotted course takes the Capella Sea through a myriad of islands, including the still smouldering volcano of Anak Krakatoa, where anchor was dropped and a climb undertaken up rocky slopes into the steaming, fissured region near the crater. Other islands provide a glimpse of the traditions and incredible variety of cultures existing throughout Indonesia. The alien surfers were easily accepted by the indigenous people, their friendliness and hospitality allowing a true experience of their way of life. The crew feasted and danced in the company of their hosts. Nowhere is the cultural conflict between traditional and Western society as obvious as on the return to Bali, where the boys were once again tourists alongside thousands of other invaders. The bustling beach of Kuta is almost unnerving after the peace and exhilaration experienced in the more remote islands. Although in Bali the pace is more hectic, there are rewards, not least of them being good surf. One can always count on a wave at Uluwatu on return to the jewel of Indonesia. Leaving the craziness of Kuta, the frenzy of the Indo Express makes way for the reality of home. For all those who have been aboard, the experience remains unforgettable.